cost to do the work and there's a cost to staying the same. You have to decide which price you value.
What is up, friends? My name is Stacy and we are back with another She Blooms podcast. Thank you for joining in with us. We always appreciate your viewing, your listening. And yeah, we are just being casual today, cozy. It is freezing outside. Please, God, send your son or something to rescue the saints from Minnesota, because we are out here dying. Like, I am tired of this weather. I am tired of being frigid. Like, my bones hurt. I'm getting too old for this. Like, I just wasn't equipped for the cold. Like, I just not a polar bear. Have no desire to be a polar bear. I'm actually probably a panda bear, and here we are in our natural habitat, warm, cozy, comfortable, minding our business. Anyways, so again, so thankful to have you guys here with me today. Anyways, I was actually scrolling on your daddy's internet and I stumbled across this video. And I was kind of just like taken back by it, because I'm just like, oh, like, has this industry been perverted? Like, where is the misconception coming from? And I am going to actually allow you guys to watch this video before I get into this. Okay, so as you guys know, I have been embarking on this self-love journey probably for the last 2 years, and honestly it was genuinely a call from God as I was continuing to heal and go through my own processes. I'm just like, what's left, right? Like, what areas in my life continue to need healing? And as God presented it, he's just like, I need you to accept you as you. And so I know that this industry has been increasingly growing over the last 2 to 3 years. It has been such a hot trend. And like any industry, right, there are components of it that has the ability to be perverted, specifically around healing too, right? Like, we just know that there are always going to be people who are just being like, I'm good, I don't need to do any work, like, it's everybody else is the problem, like, I'm sitting here arguing with everybody in the house, but I'm good anyways. And so I think when you're having that mindset, right, which gets back into the idea of like cutting people off, not actually having conversations. One of the biggest concerns that I have with the idea of ghosting, right, like, it is just lacks the ability to actually properly resolve conflict, right? But the idea of self-love is not that I don't need people. It is more surrounding that I am realizing that I need myself just as much as I need other people. And I think because so many people, right, like, I know that there's a lot of people who have grown up in great childhoods, but that is not the case for the majority. Majority of people have grown up in very turmoil relationships, very turmoil households, and because of that, I think their idea or their perception of love, or the perception of like what it means to attend to my needs first, has been non-existent, right? We have felt like for so long that the concept of love like was in correlation with struggle, right? Like, we thought that it was normal to call people out of their names. We thought it was normal to slam doors. We thought it was normal that if my boyfriend hits me and gets me flowers, that it is fine. It is normal for me to continue to pour effortlessly in other people. Meanwhile, I am suffering and I am feeling defeated. And I think as people have began to recognize that, oh, these patterns that I grew up with of like feeling minimized, feeling like my needs didn't matter, feel like that I had to be the caretaker in my household, or I needed to be the emotional regulator for my emotionally regulated like parent, that has naturally kind of transitioned into the relationships that they have been in, right? Romantic relationships, platonic relationships just as a whole. And I think that the honest concept of self-love is understanding who you are, accepting yourself who you are, celebrating yourself, right? Like, in every season. And then honestly, how do I take care of myself, right? And so if you haven't already, right, like I have a 124-day self-reflective journal, which essentially will take you through all of those steps. So self-discovery, right? Like, who am I as a person? What experience have shaped me? If I am feeling triggered, like, what do I need, right? These are all important components on what it means to actually be in a relationship. And the reason why is because if you are so far disconnected from yourself, there is no way that you're able to have a healthy relationship with another person. And the reason why is because we know that the process of actually growing in relationships with people is understanding the other person. And if you don't know what it takes for you to feel grounded or safe in a relationship, what it takes for you to regain your composure, like if you don't know like how you're showing up in relationships because of your childhood, then there is no way that's going to transcend into a relationship with another person. And if that is not happening, right, like you are going to naturally bleed on that person, and that, you know, shows up as emotional availability, inability to regulate your emotions, whatever the case might be. And so that component of discovering who you are is so important as you transition into that. And aside from that, right, like accepting who you are too, like, and the reason why that is important is because you have to identify that there have been so many ways that I have been operating. I have been operating in these defense mechanisms. I have been operating in my insecure attachment style, my avoidant attachment styles, my anxious attachment styles. And as I am healing and growing and learning more of about myself, how can I begin to accept what I didn't know and continue to make improvements more in the future, right? And so that is important. Then obviously celebrating yourself, right? I think so many people who have experienced emotional or physical abuse, they will begin starting these negative narratives. And because of those negative narratives, like they always feel like what they do is not enough, right? Like they could be a CEO of a company, but they're just like, well, this is not enough. Like I need to do better. Like that constant negative criticism, rather than just being like, wow, like I have accomplished a goal. For them, they're just like, I don't see this as a huge accomplishment. Like, what can I do more? What can I do more? And so as people are learning, growing, healing, accepting themselves for not knowing better, not doing better, that is starting to transpire in this idea of like self-love, of I can speak highly about myself. I can get rid of these negative patterns. I can understand who I am so deeply, so then that way I can actually be in healthy relationships with people, right? That is the ultimate goal, is that I care more about the health and the vitality of a relationship than I care about being in any other relationship. And before there was the concept of self-love, it was the latter of like, I'm willing to accept any sort of love in order to not feel alone. Like I'm willing to ride this wave of this toxic relationship because this is all I've known, rather than actually taking the time to discern, like, is this person for me long term? And don't get me wrong, like I have been in that process before. I have held on to relationships before, just for the sake of not being alone. I allowed like cheating, infidelity, like just crazy like talk or whatever, because I'm just like, oh, okay, well, you know, I'm gonna give this person grace. And don't get me wrong, like people are faulty, right? Like people are always going to make mistakes, but like at the end of the day, like what happens to us is something that we continue to allow. And that's where the accountability piece stands in, of just being like, it is no longer your past that allows you to continue to stay in relationships. At some point you have to identify that it is me. Like it is me that continues to allow the same patterns. It is me that continues to put myself on the back burner. It is me who continues to people please. Because we're adults and we're growing. And I know that we're adults because there's no kids on this channel. And so self-love is really more so about like, how do I love myself in such a way that I can love others, right? Because when we can see our faults, it is, and forgive those faults, right? Like, more importantly, if we can see our faults, forgive those faults, then we'll be able to see the faults in others and not necessarily hold them accountable, but more so understand that they also need an extension of love. They also need room for growth. They also need love for improvement. That doesn't necessarily mean that you need to stay and keep yourself in those environments, right? It's more so saying like, am I actually seeing a change in this person where I can continue to pour my love into them and know that it is not going to damage me, right? Because we aren't out here trying to change men. We aren't out here trying to change women, right? Because men are on the self-love journey too. And I know you guys hear the girls out here loud and proud, but like, trust me, men are doing it too. I remember when I first released my self-love journal, which includes like a 30-day self-love challenge, most men actually signed up for it. Like, I had a huge majority of men who actually signed up for it. And so it's like, I know men are going through the work. I know that they are tired of your daughters, like cussing them out, like making them feel inadequate. And so they're just like, this isn't normal. I want better. I want health of relationship. Like, I want my relationships to actually grow past a month, 2 weeks, whatever the case might be. And so men are also, but I think more importantly, right, like, if people are actually on this self-love journey, like, the only true way that you can actually do it is if you are walking with Christ, right? Because then you are going to pervert the idea of what self-love can be. Self-love is also recognizing that God has made you unique, that he has created you as such an individual, that there are so many things about you that can't change, right? Like, we can't change our appearance. Well, I guess we can, but we're just going to preserve our comments because to each its own. Anyways, but essentially, right? Like, if surgery, whatever the case may be, didn't exist, like, there are unique traits about you that you can't change, right? Like, you can't change your nose, you can't change your face. Obviously, you can change your body, whatever the case might be, like your personality. There are unique traits that God has put inside of you. And if you have been in environments where you felt less of yourself, and you began to take your eyes off of yourself, you have begun to also take the eyes off of the beauty in God, in which God has created. And so as I was pulled into the self-love journey, I was able to recognize that there were things about myself that, like, I tried to hide. Like, I tried to, alter myself. I tried to, overwork myself. Like, if you follow me on Instagram, you know that I just recently talked about, like, my journey with fitness, right? Like, these are things that, like, you have to learn to accept yourself. And as you step outside of your own personal identity, all you can do is step inside the identity of Christ and who he has created you to be. And I think that is the most important component of self-love, of just being like, I have been in situations that God has never intended me to be in. I have thought less of myself when all he thought was beauty. Like, I have talked so negatively about myself. I have put myself down when all he saw in me that I am his son and daughter. And once we realize that we have perverted the vision of who we are, of our true identity, like, all we can do is run into God's arms of just being like, it doesn't matter, right? Like, you literally see me flawless in your eyes. Like, you see me as worthy in your eyes. You see me as just the most beautiful, intimate human being that you have made and created. You have known me since the beginning of time. You know that I was created with a purpose, identity, with characteristics that no one is. And I think that that is true self-love, of being like, I recognize my faults. I recognize where I have gone wrong. I have recognized that I have strayed away from rest. I have strayed away from my true identity and who God is. I have strayed away from what health and love looks like. And now I want to pour that into myself so that way I can fully grow, so I can fully bloom into the person that God has created. And so I encourage you that if you are on this self-love journey, like, don't do it alone. Self-love isn't that I don't need people. Self-love is saying that I also need me too. I also deserve to be poured into. I also deserve to see myself as worthy, as enough, chosen, and unique. You're one on one. And once again, like, if you haven't already, here is my journal. I will link it below, but it is Embrace Yourself. It is self-reflective journal that will really transform your life. If you are serious about getting to know yourself, if you're serious about maintaining and creating healthy relationships, not with just yourself, with others, I encourage you to do this and watch how you begin to thrive in all areas of your life. I hope you have a great day. Hey friends, thank you for watching this week's episode of the Sweet Dreams podcast. Make sure you like this video, subscribe to my YouTube channel, and turn on post notifications so you're alerted when we post a new video.